It's already on. And sitting here heating the chair without me in it this whole time. I'll tell you one thing that is true, my friends. Creativity can be a slave driver when it comes on full force, when it isn't hiding away playing games with writer's block and the muse. Ooh, band name. Writer's block and the muse. Or maybe plural? Writer's block, singular, and the muses. Yes, I like that. Because then you can, do a retro thing real easy and have a whole, backup quartet, which is really the lead. Yeah? Yeah. Write that down, somebody. Thanks. At any rate, I digress. Every day I set out to hopefully achieve some impossible number of little broken down baby steps of my creative process, which includes, but is really honestly, seriously, not limited to editing existing content that's already been published, because I bet there's still dumbass typos in it, and rereading it will, after X amount of time being away from it, inspire, especially after a perspective change or this process, whatever you might call this process that I've been through the last 3 years of cocooning myself up and kind of secluding myself away and kind of coming back to the stage, as it were, in a theoretical or figurative sense, to present a sort of performance art project with many facets, etc. At any rate, if I were to try and keep up with the list of ideas that are relevant and or new, worth pursuing, I would need an army of people and a fat payroll stack to pay for those people well, so it isn't slave drivery, and so that none of us feel squashed by it deep down in our souls. And I can't, because it's just me. But here I am, anyways, bringing to you... What the fuck are we recording today? Someone quick. I don't know. I lost track. And I haven't gotten any fresh pages, so I'm just sort of vamping here. Oh, right. Warnings and disclaimers. Left you hanging there, didn't I? Sorry, folks. Totally thought I'd pushed the mic on button, hadn't, started talking, and going over with my eyeballs to the other screen. Came back to look at it. I see no audio blippity green yellow light, so it must not be taking. Sorry for the hang there. Coulda, shoulda, woulda had all that filled with music the whole time. But I digress. Thank you for tuning in. I know this will be tedious, but it might be also interesting and enlightening, and give us a time to ponder the impacts, the intense impacts that we sort of just don't bother considering of all the apps we use, right? All the apps we use almost sort of semi-automatically, semi-unconsciously now, that we're so accustomed to, that can be installed in any phone device. They got some pretty big and thick and daunting EULAs. And honestly, I've skimmed through this over here with Sprecher, and this is me live on the air asking Sprecher for their permission to read their EULA to my podcast audience. I don't think that that's a conflict of interest in any direction. It's clear transparency. That way my audience knows what we're all getting into as we're getting into it. For those of you who are really, really new to the show, here's the really like nutshell of a catch-up. For 3 years, the show has been sort of very hobbyist, very free, and I was not monetizing it. I am now, for various reasons, up to, not limited to, but very much including a copious amount of serendipitous and auspicious signs in many different places, coming from different directions, but all pointing towards, do it now. The monetization of this little hobbyist show. If you believe in that sort of thing, I kind of do. Especially when it's like big and strong and overwhelming and sort of like, whoa, sort of obvious. But then again, I could be wrong. Who knows? So, to that end, and I know this may be tedious and this may not get a lot of audio ship, but if it does get a lot of audio ship, then we all know what we're getting ourselves into. Because like I said, I intend to, and not quite right away, but like a little bit down the road, use a built-in thing that Sprecher offers, a service, which is to sort of like have them prepackaged, build for you a custom app that people can download from either platform to listen to your podcast show or shows plural. And since I do indeed intend to focus on creating a lot of different, now some scripted and tailored and sound designed and engineered and well-mixed podcast content, and some of it still off the cuff, just hit the mic and go kind of podcast content more enthusiastically, I want to know what I'm getting myself into and what other, and I want, for transparency's sake, let others know exactly what that means. In terms of saying, click yes, I do accept terms and conditions. And how that might impact the way I do the show and some of the ideas I might have about the show. And what I might need to do going backwards in time to edit and scrub some content or align some content, realign some content, so that it is not, I don't think any of it is too horribly and blatant. And I don't know. I've skimmed this, but I haven't read it, sat down and really, really read it. And I didn't want to just click yes and catapult myself into what will either be a silly, pointless waste of time that gives me a really ridiculous residuals check of some odd number of pennies, or something that could snowball, right? Like, what if I get good at this? What if I get good at telling stories and being a radio disc jockey personality that shares with you said stories on the air of a like almost daily radio show that's me and friends and guests that come to visit or drop me audio through some integrated voice app thing, so that I can edit it all together. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Looking for collaborators, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I've rambled about it. Here we go. Let's read the thing. From Sprecher.com, in my profile for my account, which I'll get into the details of in just a hot second so you know exactly what's going on with me and my account with Sprecher. Here is the page titled Monetization Accept Terms. So terms and conditions. Join the monetization program. Monetize your Take two. Monetize your podcast. Wow, I can't read. Monetizing your podcast is as quick as a click with Sprecher's monetization program. In order to participate in this program, you'll need to set up a valid PayPal account. Check. Already done. Got myself a PayPal. If you'd like to support this show You can be a direct inner circle collaborative founder and give a one-time donation of insert some amount of dollars here that doesn't sound too crazy to ask for, and help bootstrap this thing into an empire of media creation and job creation. All right, so PayPal account. Carefully read and then accept the following terms and conditions, then click apply to join now. Here comes the juicy details. Revenue sharing agreement, updated May 1st, 2019. Sprecher Inc., otherwise to be referred to as Sprecher, welcomes you to its revenue sharing program. Quote, otherwise to be further to be referenced as Sprecher Revenue Sharing Program, end quotes in parentheses. This program allows you to monetize your Sprecher-hosted shows and episodes, quote, your content, by dynamically injecting audio-visual ads to by injecting audio-visual ads targeted to your listeners. Like everything else in the cyber world of phone application stuff. Please keep in mind that the podcast advertising market is in its early stages and much of its focus remains on podcasts with high download/play numbers. Given these circumstances, it is likely that your revenue numbers will be small in the beginning. But we're optimistic they will grow as the market matures, and we'll do our best to help in providing you more and more opportunities for content monetization. In order to participate in the Sprecher Revenue Sharing Program, we require you to read and agree to the terms of this revenue sharing agreement, quote, the agreement. When you enroll in the Sprecher Revenue Sharing Program, you acknowledge your agreement to be bound by this agreement, even if this is inconsistent with other information you have read. Which is weird thing to say. Please ask us any questions you may have about this agreement before you enroll in the Sprecher Revenue Sharing Program, and please don't enroll unless you accept its terms. Dun dun dun! Scary music. No, I'm kidding. We consider the Sprecher Terms of Use link to be part of this agreement, and you acknowledge that you agree to them by the continued use of our platform. Sprecher reserves the right to change the terms of its agreement, but will notify you by announcement on the Sprecher website if we do so. Pause in reading. I, your host, the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo, clicked I agree terms to terms of use in the general, over here, terms of use, by Voxnest Inc., which is apparently the name of the company that owns and operates Sprecher.com, a long time ago. And vaguely do I remember, and having sort of brushed through it now, I'm kind of playing up the nonsensicalness of it, but I did sort of breeze through it the other night, a couple nights ago. Late at night, right before bed, right before meditating, so I can't claim to memorize it or anything. But I've got my pretend due diligence up. I've got this tab open, Terms of Service, Sprecher.com/terms. Sprecher's community rules, the privacy policy, and Sprecher cookies policy, pricing, terms, and conditions, and also my Sprecher platform account statistics window for the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo and all of the things I post therein. As of the last 30 days, the peak download on any single given day is February 16th, 68 downloads. The next closest ones are 58 on February 19th, 59 on February 10th, 35 on January 25th. And all other days are lower than that. But, as I've talked about before, if I scroll it back to this time last year, a fun thing happens. That ramp, right? And the peak last July, 631 downloads total for the month of July. By November, it peaked at 745 downloads for the month of November. Right now, January, 414. February, 495. February's not quite done yet. And the other day it was 444, which is like bing, 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 bing. So it's now 495. So that's fun. And a humble and hopefully not breach of contract namaste to everybody who's listening and or downloading the show. And I'm not like coercing anyone, and I certainly can't afford to pay anybody. But thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading. I hope that the trend continues. Because I would love for February to break. I think we've got enough days. I could be wrong. Today's the 20th, right? And we got 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. And then February's over. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 days. What can we... Ooh, that's perfect. That's the magic number that I love. 9 days. And I don't want to sound like a broken record or an NPR fundraiser promo, but this is my radio station on Sprecher. And I'm going to read to you all the inner workings so you really are clear on how it works. And I'm going to go and monetize it. And I'm going to do this as often, if not more, than I did last year, and hopefully all the time. And I'd love to eventually be able to not only afford to upgrade the account to some other higher tier, but also pay for an advertising campaign and the ability to hire people so that we can host other talented personality types shows without any of my voice in it, right? And I can do like multiple shows. That's like the pipe dream. To be able to have a little like live at home, live work, telecommuting, cyber radio station that I run. Hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, if you're interested. And you've got either a halfway decent Google device with a really nice high fidelity microphone that you haven't trashed already, or an iPad 6th gen or newer, or an iMac, whatever, that's compatible and has decent sound recording. It doesn't have to be fucking brilliant. It can even be a little shitty, you guys. I don't care. But you can pitch to me an idea that fits and works and synchronizes, but isn't about just copycatting me, right? It's like, be yourself, be your podcast show. And you don't mind me taking a cut. That's the way it works, right? Then I want to get into producing other people's shows. Either in person, here with you in this office, as long as you pass my intuition, spirituality background check test, and you're local, and you can drive to me, because I don't want to, and you don't mind meeting first. Why am I talking about this? Oh, right, because I'm throwing the pitch, right? I'm going to read the EULA. That's right. Duh. What time frame am I in? The Incorrigible Mr. Zeppo's podcast show project brought to you by Time Travel. Is it possible or is it impossible? Who knows? But in his books, it's more than possible. Read Mr. Zeppo's Crazy Bugs. Right? We're going to do that kind of stuff, but way more professional than it has been. And hopefully, with a growing audience and a bit of magic, fairy stardust of cosmic, karmic, universe, redemption-driven consciousness rewarding, like, hey, let's make some magic things happen, manifestation. This show is going to become its own cool indie show with a, sizable enough audience in the spirit, disenfranchised religious persons and secular atheists, but maybe that we need something different because that's kind of weird too. Crossover market that y'all want to do some cool, groovy, spiritual work out there as part of a grassroots movement to bring about positive healing change. And the realization that we don't need to do things the horrible, toxic, self-destroying way. We can do things in harmony with nature. It's just going to be a little bit different, and the kind of effort required might have to shift gears. Is that so much to ask? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But let's get back on topic. I probably should do the same kind of thing over at Wattpad, because me doing a podcast about the content I posted on Wattpad, does that violate either of the two's EULA? I don't think so, but maybe it does, question mark? Let's get to it. Thank you, Dashboard, for giving me the new things. Pricing terms and conditions. So I started off with a free account on Spreaker. And if you've got the discipline and the micromanagement of your improv and or scripting reading skills to do a 15-minute only segment show, cram everything in, beginning, middle, and end, 15 minutes or less every time, and maybe, do 2 or 3 parters, then you can do a free Spreaker account for absolutely gratis free and get the same kind of really awesome, simple to use platform to record it in and play other music with, and also receive chat. Did I not mention? I can get live chat. While I'm on the radio live, you can chat at me live and I can answer your questions. You just got to visit the show on Spreaker.com, I think. And or have the Spreaker radio listening app. One of the two. And I digress. No one ever does visit my show when it's on live, but oh well. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Say no more, say no more. Free accounts, according to the website's details and end user license agreement type tabulation page, reads the following. Spreaker allows you to store up to 5 hours of audio free of charge. Spreaker reserves the right to terminate free accounts at any time, with or without notice. Without limiting the generality of the foregoing, if a free account is inactive for 90 days, then Spreaker may delete any or all of your files without providing additional notice. For further information regarding your Spreaker Premium or free account, please see the Spreaker Terms of Service, which I'm about to get to. I'm just reading things in the order that I want to. Canceling your payments. Your Spreaker Pro plan, which, full disclosure, I now have a Pro plan, right? I'm paying Spreaker for the privilege of hosting and distributing my podcast show. My podcast show, by the way, and this is cool and kind of impressive. Oh, I hadn't opened that page yet. Not quite ready with the page. Distribution. Podcast, for those of you who may not be aware and want to would rather listen to it on one of these other things and don't know that these other things are something that this podcast is available at yet, that was a weird sidebar. This podcast, Take 17, this podcast is available on Apple Podcast, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Castbox, Deezer, Podcast Addict, and Podchaser. So if you've got any one of those, or, bless it, you've never heard of a podcast before, and you're listening to this on YouTube, you can get one of those podcast catchers and listen to the show. And later this year, later in 2020, probably by midsummer, as a Midsummer Night's Dream kind of thing, I'll do a Shakespeare theme, I'm going to maybe possibly release a unique, branded, multi-show podcast app with the quote-unquote final draft versions of this show and all the spin-off shows, including but not limited to the Actorly Acting of Actoring Studio for Actoring, and the Cartomancy and the Cartomancy Radio Reading Hour, that's what it's called, and others, right? Wow, I'm a mumble mouth today. Please forgive. Do I need to take 3 of that? No, I think we got that right. Podchaser, Pod Addict, Deezer, Castbox, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Spreaker, and Apple Podcasts. This and all my other shows will be available on those platforms, and also, just for the shits and giggles of being able to do it, once I learn the code and do all the things I want to do, which might take me till midsummer, I think. Hopefully, knock on wood, I actually get it all done. Support my show so that I can. I'm going to release a, Zeppo Universe podcast show bundle app that will have all the podcast shows. Boom, 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 boom. In either mix and match, random, you can just zip through whatever and skip ahead through all the things as one giant random play playlist, or alphabetically in order of historical progression from beginning to end, or however you like, broken up by show theme, and also maybe just sort of like a crowning best of episodes, which we'll do in a couple years. I don't know. Anyways, vision questing, lots of ideas, lots of thoughts here. But let's get back on track. By February, okay, so on that graph, on this tab, last thing I wanted to say, on February, for this month, this year, February 2020, currently standing at 495 downloads and 1 live plays. I would love to manifest through the laws of attraction and just being charmingly cute and interesting enough that people be like, dude, you should check this out. Download this dude's podcast. And people genuinely do it, not just because I keep sort of groveling and begging that they do on the show, which maybe I've got to quit. I think I read somewhere that I'm not allowed to do that, but I could be wrong. I could have misinterpreted something. We'll find out for sure today before we ramble on for too long. But if we can get 495 to be really close to and or breaking past 745, maybe even broaching 800, I'll take that as an auspicious, maybe even ominous sign that indeedly do we should keep doing this, and we should monetize it, and we should be strict about the rules and respect whatever we're supposed to respect according to the rules. And go full bore with it and make it a thing. So let's see if we can make that happen, right? Ding, 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 ding. All right. Returning back to the tedious, boring parts for the EULA. So you can cancel your payments. I can cancel my payments. I run this account, and I hopefully I want to upgrade, not cancel my payments. The thing I don't want to do is at the end of the year, because I've already paid through all of 2020, right? One lump sum. It was only like $200 for the $230, $40, something in there. Not a horribly expensive amount for the full year of 2020 at the whatever level of the pro level accounts I bought, which is like the basic one. It's the one above free, which I think is like $6 a month. So do the math. Times 12. $120. It might not be $200. I could be an idiot. I don't know. I don't do math in my head very much. I want to upgrade, not cancel. But to read the thing, to be compliant with the purpose of this show, quote, your Spreaker... take 17. Quote, your Spreaker Pro plan, mobile apps, and ad campaigns will continue in effect unless and until you cancel each, or we terminate them. You must cancel your Pro plan and mobile apps before they renew each month or year in order to avoid billing of the next month or year's fees to your credit card. Sidebar, back to me just making commentary. I have not paid for, it's a subscription plan, right? I got to pay them a subscription fee for the privilege to use their mobile app, custom mobile app builder and production app powerhouse thing that then becomes a thing I log into, from whence I can then publish to Google app platforms and Apple app platforms. And did I say Google Maps? I said Google Android is what I meant to say. Sorry, we'll scrub that and edit it in post. You get the picture. So, when I do release that bundled app thing is when I will pay for it. So there's a lot of work to be done, folks. So don't worry, I'm not paying for that now. Anybody who might be personally worried that I'm paying for too much product all at once, I'm not. I'm only paying for the hosting and for the recording at the broadcaster level. We'll get to that. That detail's tabbed up in a second. let's finish this chapter here of tedious things I've got to read at least once so that I can say legit, like, I read them on the air. I'm not bullshitting you that I read them all. I read everything. I want to be able to say that. Say I did it on the air. It's a tradition. I might reread them when they update, or just, not the whole thing, right? But just the updates. Continuing. Sprecher Pro plans, mobile apps, and ad campaigns. Asterisk, I have yet to pay $0. Not paid for a Sprecher ad campaign. But the moment I get my income tax return this year, which should be in just a week or so, I will. Full disclosure, just saying that, I intend to. I want to. I want to pay X amount and see what happens to the analytic matrix, the downloads per day, per month numbers. Do I get a nice tasty boost for investing $60 in an ad campaign? They're about to tell us a little bit about the ad campaigns, and then later I'm going to read the ad campaigns EULA. But I just wanted to sidebar that in full disclosure. I intend to do that, but probably won't do that for a few days. And when I do, I'll announce it, right? Because I want my audience to be in the know. All right, sorry, I know this is crazy and boring and tedious, and people will look back and be like, why? Oh, why did he do it? Guess what? You know what else I have plans to do? And I hope I don't get a cease and desist order for this. Please, nobody rat me out. Because I think the way it works is like, as long as you don't get a complaint saying cease and desist. In other words, send your complaints to me. Don't send them to Sprecher. And we'll talk about it on the air. But as long as Sprecher doesn't get any bullshit complaints demanding my show get taken off the air, I can pretty much exercise my free right speech to comment on anything as long as I cite it and where I'm getting it from in the moment, right? Boom. And in the moment, ask for permission. And then the moment I have staff, I can ask for permission ahead of time. Let's bootstrap us into having staff. Life goals being manifested as we live out our life goals. Yes, indeed. Here we go. So, continuing. Sprecher Pro plans, mobile apps, and ad campaigns, asterisks, already said the thing, are prepaid and non-refundable. Sprecher, all caps, does not provide refunds or credits for any partial months or years. And all caps. You may cancel your Sprecher Pro plan, mobile apps, and ad campaigns at any time, and cancellation will be effective immediately. I want to make a full disclosure to my audience. I fully intend to get to the end of 2020. So, if for some reason my show goes off the air from Sprecher.com, the primary engine and original studio production host service, then something bad happened. Just saying. I'm trying to vote that out, right? Let's all pray and hope that nothing bad happens, that I can't continue to record and distribute my show into the ether, unaltered, unhijacked, unhacked, unfucked with, vis-a-vis, and I am invoking actual spiritual practice here, vis-a-vis the protection of whatever sentient beings of frequency and light are out there guiding and or maybe mildly influencing reality at this level of the matrix wherein I sit experientially doing this crazy performance art show for money. Dun, 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 dun. I want to get to the end of 2020 and then decide if it was worth it and it's become self-sustaining and it's growing and people are listening and I'm, not being too provocative, I hope, but actually sort of inviting people to contemplate some very valid, interesting, thought-provoking spiritual questions worthy of popular discourse and discussion, and that renders some support so that I don't have to cancel my plan either this year or next year, because I want to get through to 2021, right? I want to get 10 years of being on Sprecher and have it become a show more popular or as popular than what's his name? The guy that everyone's been talking shit on lately because he got that medal, which was redonkulous in my opinion, but I also didn't want to talk shit on him. Wow, I'm totally blanking on his name right now. I don't mean that in disrespect. I seriously cannot pull up the file. Ron Howard keeps coming out. And Ron Howard is not the guy I meant to say. Ron Howard is in some ad that I'm having to look at too much, which I think is for some magazine that's selling some scammy bullshit fake news story about Ron Howard and how sad his house is. I'm not looking at that right now. That's embedded in my memory and it's fucking with me right now because I want to say Orpheus. No, I want to say, never mind. Let's get back on track. That guy, he won the award. I'm not saying his name out of disrespect. I'm not saying his name out of disrespect. That is a true statement. I am unable to say his name because of an internal memory failure. Editing later on to include his name. George Orwell. Wrong name. Why did that come out? I don't know. Moving forward. If you wish to cancel your Pro Plan mobile apps and ad campaigns, you may do so via your account settings page. Should you elect to cancel your Pro Plan mobile apps and ad campaign, please note that you will not be issued a refund for the most recently or any previously charged monthly or yearly fees. By signing up for Sprecher Pro Plan or purchasing a mobile app or ad campaign providing Sprecher with your payment account information, you hereby agree to these payment terms and conditions. Yes, Sprecher.com, I have agreed in advance for the other two optional things that I will pay for later in the future. And also for the fact that I have paid in advance all the way through for 2020. And I'm saying on the record for the show that I wholeheartedly intend to be on the air as often as possible in order to cultivate a live audience that can be live so I can flip over here to the chat tab and be like, hey, it's not empty. There's a bunch of people there and they want to ask questions and we're going to talk about so-and-so's question next. So that's the vision questing, manifesting, jibber jabber for that segment. Billing, tedious EULA stuff. Breeze through that. The fees to your Pro Plan will be billed from the date you elect or converted to a Pro Plan at each monthly or yearly renewal thereafter, unless and until you cancel your account. Yes, unless or until I cancel my account, here's the goal I want to achieve in 2020. Thank you for prompting me, EULA Text. The goal is to be here on the air with you, approaching New Year's Eve at the end of 2020, having produced and popularized an opinion talk show that, as promised, discusses with other people, guests online and on the phone. I've got a phone. I've got a phone line. I've got a phone number. I'm going to maybe start taking phone calls. I just haven't released the phone number. It's not public yet. So if anyone starts calling that number, you're going to be on the air. Warning. This is a warnings and proviso episode. Number is not released yet, so don't start calling me yet, people. If you're all 17 of you that listen to the show right now, I have not released the number yet. So if you think you've got a phone number on me and you call it, I can't be responsible for what you get because it probably isn't me. But when it's all cleared and set up, I'm hopefully going to have it routed through a cool old-timey voice boxy thing, because I've got a cool old-timey. It's not an actual authentic Rotodial. I wish it were. But it was like Rotodial 2.0, the first digital button dial. It was in the shape of a Rotodial 70s phone. And it's the same mauve super deluxe cream color that I love that slowly started to fade into gross puke yellow. And it's got the heavy ass, this is a self-defense device in and of itself, metal plate at the bottom. So ain't nobody breaking into my room in the middle of the night and fucking with me, because I sleep with one of these on my counter. And if you show up thinking you're going to fucking with me, I'm ready with my phone. Okay? That's the kind of universe I grew up in, because that's all we had. I just had a Rotodial phone. And when I was going to be in my fictional universe, in the scary neighborhood that I grew up plurality because I'm talking about multiple universes in which I remember multiple lifetimes, right? That's the fictional context for those of you who don't know. Mr. Zeppo, there's all this discussion about multiple lifetimes. Mr. Zeppo can actively recall all of his multiple infinite fractal lifetimes that are still going. If any individual avatar has passed away, he can sort of vaguely remember that fact and some of the highlight reel, but not directly, like lucidly remember all the details. If the avatar is still alive in their time tunnel, in their time frame, he can actively tap into and localize a memory recall of any chapter of that person's life prior to yesterday. Today he can't access because that's happening now and that's not a memory yet, and it's a memory thing. See how that works? Giving away the secrets here. Oh, anyways, that's not what this episode's about. I got to stop rambling about that. Billing. I'm set to yearly for anyone who's confused. So, and it's not right now. I already paid for it right before New Year's, I think. We'll see the billing date in a hot second. In the event of your pro plan being a day not contained in any given month or year, Sprecher will bill your credit card on the last day of such a month, or January 31st, February 28th is the next time your credit card would be billed. Okay, great. That's kind of boilerplate for anybody that's got recurring fees on and how to deal with leap year. This accounts to anybody who subscribes to any of my services, because I'll probably borrow a lot of this boilerplate, especially since I'm literally pitching Sprecher to sponsor me as a show. I want them to take me on tour to feature Sprecher. I want to go to small regional theaters and amateur theater black boxes across the country and then across the world, with a banner that says brought to you by Sprecher and Insight Timer and insert your corporation name here. And we're going to do a live in front of a studio audience, local crazy talk show that's like this, but today it's in, Quebec. And tomorrow it's in some other place all around the world, but like big cities, little cities, always at a theater with a stage and, more than 25 seat capacity. I'll do small houses. There's just got to be good security, right? Because I talk about crazy things, and I don't need crazy people showing up and threatening my security because they disagree with my crazy things. Then again, that's a paranoid thought to have. Why am I having it? Back to the actual content we're supposed to be getting through. The mobile app is subject to yearly renewal thereafter, unless and until you choose to cancel the app. Click on the link in account settings page to see the commencement date for your next renewal period. Sprecher will automatically bill your credit card each year on the calendar day corresponding to the commencement of the mobile app. The event of your mobile app began on a day not contained on a given blah, blah, blah. Same thing, leap year for the mobile app. Ad campaigns are not subject to monthly or yearly billing. This is important because that's the first thing we're going to do is an ad campaign. So I want my audience to know that I advertise myself on the platform that I host my show on, or will be, probably starting late February, early March of this year. Once the allotted funds, and this is important, continuing, I'm going to read this in detail and not blah, blah, blah through it. By the way, the blah, blah, blah through it part was just stuff that sounded boilerplate to me or that I've already read very similar text to. Sprecher may also periodically authorize your credit card in anticipation of account or related charges, right? Good to know. I almost blah, blah through that, but that's boilerplate. Most accounts with a renewing thing will have a sentence like that. Ad campaigns are not subject to monthly or yearly billing. Once the allotted funds have been depleted for any or all ad campaigns, it or they will no longer run throughout the Sprecher platform. Ad campaigns can be managed in your account settings. They can be canceled or more funds can be added. Dear Sprecher, is it valid, especially if I move up to there's a station account, right? Or we'll get to the account labels later in a hot second. But if I upgrade to one of the more powerful accounts and I'm managing other talents' shows that they record with me, through me, that I edit and or upload through my account, can I run a targeted ad campaign for that show and get special analytics that's separate for a targeted ad campaign for my show and get its own analytics and pay for it with the same like pay thing that I pay for my basic hosting account, right? And will that really render me more views as a monetized show so that it's all fucking worth it and not a money pit, right? No offense. Sorry for the foul language. My show is and always ever shall be marked mature, explicit content. Not because I am a sex fiend. I don't think I am. Some of my girlfriends might use that as a compliment, and some of my partners in the past might throw that as an insult. Who knows? But I digress. Why did I have to say that about myself? I don't know. My point is, that's a valid question I'd love to get an answer to in the not too distant future, because I would, in fact, love to use this business platform in that fashion. Right, so as far as the ad campaigns go, all fees and charges are non-refundable, and there are no refunds or credits for partially used periods. Sprecher may change these fees or charges in effect, add new fees and charges time to time, but we will give you an advance notice of these charges by email. If you want to use a different credit card, or if there's changes in your credit card validity or expiration date, you may edit your information by accessing your account settings page. If your credit card reaches expiration date, your continued use of Sprecher constitutes your authorization to use and continue billing that credit card, and you remain responsible for any uncollected amounts. If your responsibility to keep your contact information and payment information current and updated. Good to know. Right? Good to know. Like, if something happens and all of this becomes unprofitable to me, I've got to be really proactive and not just delete the app. But like I said, what I'm trying to manifest is not failure. Don't linger with that, dear audience, in your mind. Linger in your mind with the thought of a promoted, well-funded, touring talk show podcast with like a tough and tight professional skeleton crew of me, a couple of co-hosts and guest talents, and the ability to hire in local venues, local areas, local talent to also feature as we tour. That's the goal, right? That's why you're listening to this show now. That's why the words are being said that come out of my mouth. Pro plans. And then we'll take a quick music break to cleanse the palate. Sprecher offers you the option of increasing your broadcasting time, increasing your account storage space, and access additional statistical information for a fee. By doing so, your account will be converted to a pro plan and will not be subject to some of the restrictions placed on free accounts as described below. That's why I started with the free plan first. Sprecher also allows you the option of ordering your own personalized mobile app dedicated to any one of the shows you create. Oh, I guess I can't bundle them all together. That's a learning moment. As well as ad campaigns made up of your own personally created visual ads that will run throughout Sprecher's platform. I'm actually excited to do that and test its efficacy and viability. If it's affordable and drives profit to my show, I will probably once a year, probably around my birthday / New Year's / this time, February, run an ad campaign just to grab new listeners on Sprecher and other platforms, right? Because why not? The whole world has to market itself. You got to hustle your hustle, or else your hustle won't deliver, right? Sprecher allows you the option of ordering your own personalized... Oh, I read that. Blah, blah, blah. Sprecher accepts credit cards and will automatically charge your credit card monthly or yearly depending on which pro plan or product you select. If any fees is not paid in a timely manner, Sprecher is unable to process your transactions using the credit card information provided. Sprecher reserves the right to revoke access to your Sprecher account and files. Cool, that's fine. For the record, audience, there is a archive YouTube account. YouTube is, and we will go and read their EULA one of these days in an upcoming warnings and disclaimers episode recap during, some later quarter in the year, because this shit is tedious. But I want to read all the EULAs of all the platforms that I'm using to create the content that I'm using that ultimately I'm thinking of trying to monetize, right? Because I'm an artist. Artists must monetize or die in this environment, and so therefore, the show you're listening to and the ones I've just pitched for future creation. Oh, right. The point of that divergence was, should something ever happen to me, hopefully, the YouTube archive account, whose link is unfortunately a long, garbly number, and I'm not going to read right now, but is linked somewhere, probably on my Sprecher profile, and probably on my Facebook profile, that will forever hold, I think, all the things. They're all getting pumped over there. And if I ever get like big enough that I can pay for a SoundCloud account, right now I'm not paying that subscription fee. Hell no, it's a little bit too pricey. And it would prevent me from doing Sprecher, right? And Sprecher already hosts a pretty healthy amount. Moving on. In regards to your pro plan, if you do not bring your Sprecher balance to current within 5 days after the Sprecher provides you with the notification that your account is in arrears, real legalese language, arrears, it is not just some made-up word, Sprecher reserves the right to use our discretion to delete some or all of your files as to reduce your storage space to below the free speech limit and to convert your Sprecher to a pro plan to a free account, which is subject to restrictions described below. In regards to mobile apps and ad campaigns, Sprecher has the right to cancel them outright. Okay. We hope to never go into arrears, dear audience. We hope that with your devoted, supportive listening and engagement and liking and following on the primary Sprecher account, that we become a popular show and that people all around the world give it a crack, give it a good listening to, and an automatic auto-download of all episodes ever recorded. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Don't sue me for saying that. And now, my friends, as promised, a brief audio break. Let us return to Slow Jam Black Magic 101. Produced by DJ Zed and Political Outrage and the Purple Mush. From the Cookies tab, owner and data controller, Vox Nest Inc. They've got an address there. I'm not going to read it. Owner contact email info@voxnest.com. Since the installation of third-party cookies and other tracking systems through the services used within Sprecher cannot be technically controlled by the owner, any specific references to cookies and tracking systems installed by third parties are to be considered indicative. In order to obtain complete information, the user is kindly requested to consult the privacy policy of the respective third-party services listed in this document. Given the objective complexity surrounding the identification of technologies based on cookies, users are encouraged to contact the owner should they wish to receive any further information on the use of cookies by Sprecher. Thank you, Sprecher.com. There's a bunch of other information here. There's a section entitled How to Provide or Withdraw Consent to the Installation of Cookies. In addition to what is specified in this document, the user can manage preferences for cookies directly from within their own browser and prevent, for example, third parties from installing cookies. Through browser preferences, through browser preferences, it is also possible to delete the cookies installed in the past, including the cookies that may have saved the initial consent for the installation of the cookies by this website. Users can, for example, find information about how to manage cookies in the most commonly used browsers at the following addresses: Google Chrome, and that's a link, Mozilla Firefox, it's another link, Apple Safari, another link, and Microsoft Internet Explorer. So be advised, fellow users of the interwebs, you can indeed take cookie things into your own hands. But for the purposes of this show and the purposes of me using Sprecher, I'm using this so you're aware that if you are going to support the show and passively and aren't a big paranoid cookies blocker, that's helping the show because Sprecher uses cookies in regards to advertising, analytics, remarketing, and behavioral targeting. AdWiz Inc. is apparently involved in that. Elastic Mail is apparently involved with that. Sharing of video, podcasts, and other UGC, user-generated content, created within Sprecher via external social networks, platforms, and services. Target Spot Inc. is apparently involved with this. Tend App and App2C is apparently involved with this. Triton Digital Inc. is apparently involved with this. Each of these has a drop-down in which there's a link to a privacy policy, which is epic. And I might have to do a recap, like future big-ass reading of all those. But here's what the cookie policy on Sprecher says in the short term, or in the general term. Other types of cookies are third parties that install cookies. Some of the services listed below collect statistics in anonymized and aggregated form and may not require the consent of the user or may be managed directly by the owner, depending on how they are described, without the help of third parties. If any third-party operated services are listed among the tools below, these may be used to track users' browsing habits in addition to the information specified herein and without the owner's knowledge. Please refer to the privacy policy of the listed services for detailed information. So, advertising. There's a big drop-down thing that's actually not just a link, but a bunch of words here. This type of services allows user data to be utilized for advertising communication processes displayed in the form of banners and other advertisement on Sprecher, possibly based on user interests. This does not mean that all personal data are used for this purpose. Information and conditions are shown below. Some of the services listed below may use cookies to identify users, or they may use the behavioral retargeting technique, i.e. displaying ads tailored to the user's interests and behavior, including those detected outside of Sprecher. For more information, please check the privacy policies of the relevant services. In addition to any opt-out offered by any of these services below, the user may opt out of third-party services use of cookies by visiting the Networked Advertising Initiative opt-out page. And there's a link, and that's something worth talking about, and I'm going to tab open that and talk about it and may bookmark it for later use. So it talks about DoubleClick for Publishers, which is a Google Inc. service, is an advertising service provided by Google Inc. that allows the owner to run advertising campaigns in conjunction with external advertising networks that the owner unless otherwise specified in this document, has no direct relationship with. In order to opt out from being tracked by various advertising networks, users may use the Your Online Choices link. In order to understand Google's use of the data, consult Google's partner policy. Might have to open that tab up. But let's back up and come back to just Sprecher's basic policy here. Sprecher uses cookies to save the user's sessions and to carry out other activities that are strictly necessary for the operation of Sprecher, for the example, in relation to the distribution of traffic. Activities strictly necessary for the use of functioning of the service. Cookies consist of portions of code installed in the browser that assist the owner in providing the service according to the purpose described. Some of the purposes for which cookies are installed may also require users' consent. Where the installation of cookies is based on consent, such installation can be freely withdrawn at any time following the instructions provided in this document. That document is sprecher.com/cookies, if you ever want to take a look at it yourself. But that's the bit of reading from that. And there is optout.networkadvertising.org /C=1. Opt out of interest-based advertising. manage my browser's opt-outs, learn about mobile device opt-outs, understanding online advertising, and learn about internet-connected TV choices. Go edumacate yourselves, audience. But I'm not going to do a deep dive on that yet. I am going to bookmark it. I'm going to put it in writing resources for a future episode. But as you know, I've sometimes talked about how Sprecher tracks statistics for me and gives me some analytics. That's part of all that web of cookie webs, right? I now really genuinely want to read to you the privacy policy from Sprecher.com. In large part because I really want to make sure that I'm 100% absolutely clear about it myself. But this has been a really long freaking episode already. This is 60 minutes and almost 60 seconds long already. Let's power through and get this through as quickly as possible. That's a really long document. Privacy policy. Sprecher collects some personal data from its users. Owner and data controller. Voxnest Inc. Types of data collected. Oh, my windows are open. Sorry for the background noise. Types, actually, let me just give you a musical break, and we're just going to make this a double wide episode. Hang tight, friends. This is getting deep. So, types of data collected. Among the types of personal data that Sprecher collects by itself or through third parties, there are first name, email address, cookies, and usage data. Complete details in each type of personal data collected are provided in the dedicated sections of the privacy policy by specific explanation, text displayed prior to the data collection. Personal data may be freely provided by the user, in which this case, by the way, is me, and or something similar if you have any podcast app, right? That you might be listening, whatever. That's obviously different. Whatever app you're using to listen to my podcast, it has its own EULA, its own end user license agreement, which if you've never read fully, you really should think about reading fully just so that you're well informed, right? It never hurts to be well informed. It's just time consuming AF. I digress. Unless specified otherwise, all data requested by Sprecher is mandatory, and failure to provide this data may make it impossible for Sprecher to provide its services. In cases where Sprecher specifically states that some data is not mandatory, users are free not to communicate this data without consequences to the availability or the functioning of the service. Users who are uncertain about which personal data is mandatory are welcome to contact the owner. Any use of cookies or of other tracking tools by Sprecher or by the owners of third-party services used by Sprecher serves the purpose of providing the service required by the user, in addition to any other purposes described in the present document and in the cookie policy, if available. Users are responsible for any third-party personal data obtained, published, or shared through Sprecher and confirm that they have the third party's consent to provide the data to the owner. In other words, when I read my Wattpad that's considered data that I'm now giving to Sprecher, and I am perpetually conceding that I have the consent of Wattpad to read the things. Which is why I'm a little edgy about when I read the news, do I have the news's consent? I don't. And I'm asking for it in situ. Does that count? Probably doesn't. I'm kind of probably bending the rules in a probably get screwed kind of way if anyone gets really busy with me, maybe. Which is why I'm going back before I monetize the show, or as I monetize the show, and scrubbing all past episodes of any content that's questionably too close for comfort on that issue, right? Because I haven't been thinking about this. I started using Sprecher without reading the EULA, as everyone does, whether it's Facebook or TikTok or YouTube. How many people actually read the EULA? I didn't, but here I am actually doing it now. Mode and place of processing the data. Methods of processing. The owner takes appropriate security measures to prevent unauthorized access, disclosure, modification, or unauthorized destruction of the data. The data processing is carried out using computers and or IT-enabled tools following organizational procedures and modes strictly related to the purposes indicated. In addition to the owner, in some cases, the data may be accessible to certain types of persons in charge involved with the operation of Sprecher, administration, sales, marketing, legal systems administration, or external parties such as third-party technical service providers, mail carriers, hosting providers, IT companies, communication agencies, appointed, if necessary, as data processors by the owner. The updated list of these parties may be requested from the owner at any time. Legal basis of processing. The owner may process personal data relating to the user if one of the following applies. Users have given their consent for one or more of the specific purposes. Note, under some legislations, the owner may be allowed to process personal data until the user objects to such processing, opt out, without having to rely on consent or any other of the following legal bases. This, however, does not apply whenever the processing of personal data is subject to European data protection law. Provision of data is necessary for the performance of an agreement with the user and or any pre-contractual obligations thereof. Processing is necessary for compliance with the legal obligations to which the owner is subject. Processing is related to a task that is carried out in the public interest or in the exercise of official authority vested in the owner. Processing is necessary for the purposes of the legitimate interests pursued by the owner or by a third party. In any case, the owner will gladly help to clarify the specific legal basis that applies to the processing, and in particular, whether the provisions of personal data is statutory or contractual requirement or a requirement necessary to enter into a contract. I think that data also includes the words that I am saying, which are technically my intellectual property, right? I mean, except for when I'm quoting other things. But the packaging altogether of it, which it becomes my intellectual property because I make it a show, whatever I do, whether it's reading the phone book or reading this EULA or talking to you about what I saw on the news the night before, etc., etc. In any case, I already read that. In any case, the owner will gladly help to clarify specific legal basis that applies to the processing, and in particular whether the provisions of personal data is a statutory or contractual requirement or a requirement necessary to enter into a contract. Place. The data is processed at the owner's operating offices and in any other places where parties involved in the processing are allocated or located. Depending on the user's location, data transfers may involve transferring the user's data to a country other than their own. To find out more about the place of processing, such as transfer data, users can check the section containing details about the processing of personal data. Users are also entitled to learn about the legal basis of data transfers to a country outside of the European Union, to any international organization governed by public international law or set up by two or more countries, such as the UN, about the security measures taken by the owner to safeguard their data. If any such transfers take place, users can find out more by checking the relevant sections of this document or inquire with the owner using the information provided in the contact section. Retention time. Personal data should be processed and stored for as long as required by the purposes they have been collected for. Therefore, Personal data collected for the purposes related to the performance of a contract between the owner and the user shall be retained until such contract has been fully performed. Personal data collected for the purposes of the owner's legitimate interests shall be retained as long as needed to fulfill such purposes. Users may find specific information regarding the legitimate interests pursued by the owner within the relevant sections of this document or by contacting the owner. The owner may be allowed to retain personal data for longer periods whenever the user has given consent to such processing, as long as such consent is not withdrawn. Furthermore, the owner may be obligated to retain personal data for a longer period whenever required to do so for the performance of a legal obligation or upon the order of an authority. Once the retention period expires, personal data should be deleted. Therefore, the right to access, the right to erasure, and the right to rectification and the right to data portability cannot be enforced after expiration of the retention period. The purposes of processing. The data concerning the user collected to allow the owner to provide its services, as well as the following purposes: registration and authentication, access to third-party accounts, handling payments, analytics, contacting the user, advertising, remarketing and behavioral targeting, and hosting and back-end infrastructure. Users can find further detailed information about such purposes of processing and about the specific personal data used for such purposes to the respective sections of this document. Facebook permissions asked by Sprecher. Sprecher may ask for some Facebook permissions, allowing it to perform actions with the user's Facebook account and to retrieve information, including personal data from it. The service allows Sprecher to connect with the user's account on the Facebook social network provided by Facebook Inc. For more information about the following permissions, refer to Facebook Permissions and Documentation, which is a link. You all can follow that. Facebook Privacy Policy, which is a link. Click on that for yourself. The permission asks are the following. Basic information by default includes certain user data such as ID, name, picture, gender, and their locale. Certain connections to the user such as friends are also available. If the user has made more of their data public, more information will be available. Email provides access to the user's primary email address. Detailed information on the processing of personal data. There's a bunch of drop-down things I'm not going to read, but they are inclusive of access to third-party accounts, advertising, analytics. I might read that someday in the future. Contacting the user, handling payments, PayPal Inc., Stripe Inc., things might be handled there. Registering and authentication, direct registration, user registers by filling out the registration form, the personal data collected to by Sprecher. Facebook authentication, Twitter authentication, Google authentication, which means you can interact with the show vis-a-vis all those platforms because you're an authenticated account, etc. And that in listening to my show, one way or the other, all of those agencies are tracking cookies through you at your accounts, right? As well as several others, including further information about personal data, including Elastic Mail Inc., Wiz Ads Inc., Target Spot Inc., I already read all these, didn't I? No, Triton Spot, I haven't read all of these. Triton Spot Inc., Triton Digital Inc., Tender, not Tinder, Tender App, terrible choice, guys, should have picked something else, which is actually EntP, like Entertainment P, LLC, sharing of video, podcasts, and other user-generated content created within Sprecher via external social networks and platforms. Here's the thing, a blurb I should read out loud. Users can send in invitations or any other type of communication related to any user-generated content created within Sprecher by using external social networks already installed on the devices, e.g. Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, etc. In these cases, user must be aware that the data are processed by such third parties according to their privacy policy and without any possibility of the owner to exercise any kind of control over the further processing of the data shared by the user. Da-da-dum! Sharing and resharing of personal data within Sprecher. Please be aware that other users of Sprecher might repost or otherwise share what you post, which could include data such as your name, nickname, screen name, video, and other information about you, as well as information about content that you post.
These other users might make such information publicly available. The owner processes the data to enable the display of Sprecher sharing of such information through Sprecher by other users. Of course, I want that to happen. I want to get trendy and popular with lots of people listening to my show. They have a section for children usage of the service. The service is not intended for use by children, especially those under the age of 13. So if you're 13 or under, stop using Sprecher.com. No one under the age of 13 is allowed to register for the service or provide any personally identifiable information or use our social, community, or public discussion areas, photo and video game galleries, chats, and elsewhere. And that is also true of my own show and my own social media. If you're under that age, you can't be on here. And I think that should be true. Like, people shouldn't give their kids Facebook accounts when they're born. Or if they do create them when they're born, they should not give them the keys to it until they're over the age of, I say, 21. But the world says 13 or 17. Minors between the ages of 13 and 17 inclusive must get the permission of their parents or legal guardians before using the service. If your children discloses information about themselves publicly accessible to the services, make unsolicited messages from other parties, you should tell them not to do so. If you're worried about your children's activities or the privacy on the service, we encourage children should not be on the internet, period. The internet should be a 21 and over tool, I think, period. I've always felt that way. Even when I was a minor on the internet, especially when I was a minor on the internet, back in the Wild West days of being a minor on the internet. I digress. Let's not go down that rabbit hole. Let's wrap up this endless reading of stuff. Notice to California customers, your California privacy rights. California Shine the Light law requires certain businesses to respond to requests for California customers asking about the business's practices related to disclosing personal information to third parties and third parties direct blah 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 third parties direct marketing purposes to find out more. Okay, push notifications. Sprecher may send push notifications to the user. If you're a user using Sprecher.com or any of the previously listed podcast catchers, this stuff, kind of, sort of, may directly or indirectly apply to you too. Boom. Privacy tab, page complete. Next up, let's play a little bit of music to cleanse the palate. And welcome back. Next up, Sprecher's community rules, because it is all about community, right, folks? We are here to build community, whether we do it in person, face-to-face, whether we do it on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, on whatever social media platform you want to use. We're always trying to build community. So this is the rules of community according to this platform that I'm using to build my little radio-style internet radio community on Sprecher.com. Also available on iHeartRadio. Y'all gonna read your iHeartRadio EULA yourself, because I'm not gonna do it today. Here we go. Sprecher community rules. Breaking the rules can mean eventually getting your account suspended or terminated. Let's pray, friends, for decades and decades of not that happening, but the exact opposite. This show getting better and better, getting more and more popular, getting self-fulfillingly self-sufficient enough to be a job creator phenomena, so that it can be an exciting, diverse chorus of voices, not just me rambling at your face. Avoid the consequences, continuing with Sprecher's community rules. Avoid the consequences by following these examples, these simple do's and don'ts. I'm going to read the don'ts first. Don't impersonate someone else. There's a limit to the number of times a username or account can be used or created, and they should be original. Don't take usernames that don't reflect your identity. Don't use other people's pictures. We reserve the right to remove accounts that violate this clause. The Incorrigible Mr. Zeppo is my brand. I originally came up with it, and while it is not my birth name, technically, and I hope I don't get forced to just go to my birth name, I will gladly accept that should it ever become an issue, and rebrand to include my real-life secret identity. But for now, for the purposes of the podcast, I think I'm within the bounds because I'm not impersonating someone else. I am role-playing the product of my own fictional creation, a character known as the Incorrigible Mr. Zeppo, which, of course, has a secret identity, which is based on my own real-life identity, which, isn't that hard to figure out, right? On the do side of this double column infographic, it says, voice your opinions. Sprecher is the ideal place to voice your opinions and perspectives, and we fully support free speech. Of course, be tolerant and respectful of those whose ideas are different from yours, and keep offensive, defamatory, or abusive content off Sprecher. I think I comply with that, friends. Despite the fact that I am giving some pretty, sometimes robust criticism to public figures, I think that I do it with respect and I'm not being offensive or defamatory. Oh, right, I didn't finish reading the don't. Don't impersonate someone else. There's a limited number of accounts. Usernames can be used or created. They should be original. Don't take other usernames that don't reflect your identity. Don't use other people's pictures. We reserve the right to remove accounts that violate this clause. No, I didn't read it all. Never mind. I thought there was more that I had not read. Okay. Don't upload or broadcast content that isn't yours. I have not wholesale uploaded anything like that, I don't think. All the music that I've presented in the show has either been mine or I have been within my rights, having appropriately gotten permission to utilize. So far, so good. So under the headline, it says, it is your responsibility to obtain all the necessary permissions and licenses to upload and share any non-original content. Copyright infringement will get your audio deleted. I do need to check because maybe some of the stuff where I'm responding to something I watch on TV and I left some of the TV audio in the the recording file, and maybe I always meant to punch it out. I may have failed to punch out audio from TV, and there maybe I don't have permission. Okay, so I'm definitely maybe slightly flexing that rule. Okay, the do column says, create content, be creative, share your voice and sounds with the world. Just don't infringe on other people's copyrights when you do. So that's pretty clear. I've got to go back and fix a couple of bits where I was like, I can't believe I just heard that on TV. And I recorded myself responding to it and then played the TV re-recording. That's probably not in violation. So because I didn't ask for permission ahead of time. And I'm talking about it on the show live. Ooh, don't report me. Okay. Don't flame, rant, troll, or spam. Bad behavior towards others is not tolerated and puts you at risk of having your account suspended or terminated by Sprecher. Don't troll on other people's chat rooms or messages, and don't spam pages. I honestly wholeheartedly believe that I don't do that. I do happen to have social media pages open while I'm podcasting, and then will sometimes read other people's, but I keep their names anonymous, and I read their content generalized as sort of paraphrasing, and I don't think I'm spamming or trolling anybody. So hopefully I don't get any complaints about that. On the do column, it says, do criticize and discuss, but constructively. Feedback can be very valuable when used constructively. Before leaving your comments, ask yourself if you would be just as thrilled to receive the same feedback. In terms of what I say on the show, yeah, I think that's I'm compliant with both of those, and nothing even begins to risk infringement there. Do not create fake accounts. Don't create fake Sprecher accounts for the sole purpose of leaving comments or boosting your stats. We devote a lot of time trying to keep the platform tidy for everyone to enjoy. I 100% vouch, swear, and authenticate that I don't have multiple Sprecher.com accounts. I do manage and operate multiple Facebook pages, but those don't directly comment on Sprecher profiles, right? And my Facebook authentication is tied directly to my main profile, my main real profile, which has my actual name. That's what, when I say that, like, although I pretend to be semi-anonymous on the podcast, you can figure out who I am pretty quick, because you can find me on Facebook pretty easily, because I want you to go to the Almost Daily Zencast Facebook page and comment about the episode. So, friends. Oh, here we go. Let's read the final blurb on this community rules page. Are you ready? How will the rules be enforced? It's 3 strikes and you're out before your account is terminated. To break it down even further, quote, whenever someone on Sprecher's team sees or gets notified of a user breaking the rules, we send that user an email with a first warning, depending on the case. This could be asking to remove harmful or infringing content, and we expect users to comply and respond within a reasonable time frame, maximum 1 or 2 days. Users that infringe on copyright will have their consent to set up private straight away. Users that infringe on copyrights will have their content set to private straight away. In other words, if someone reports an episode, this is how I'm understanding it, right? I'm unpacking that. I've been on this Sprecher.com doing this show for 3 years, and I've never gotten an email or never gotten a letter saying cease or desist. If I have, I've somehow managed to miss it. So I believe that I have not. And my account continues to be on the air. So I may have sort of accidentally flexed that previous rule by wanting to comment on something that just happened on live TV, hitting record before I've paused, or needing to listen to the thing and comment in order to comment on it, and then not edited it out, which I meant to do. Ninja's pledge. Actually, that's a horrible thing to say because I'm not a ninja. So I need to go back and scrub that. I definitely do. And I'm going to do that today, folks. And I haven't gotten even a letter, so I'll be in compliance. So it's 3 strikes are out. And that's contingent on a complaint being received from the public. So, dear public, I can't beg you, or even be guilty of negotiating with you to not report me if you feel it worthy of reporting. Do you do you, and you do your conscience. But I hope that while listening to my podcast, you will earnestly, with an actual open mind, genuinely hear what I've had to say in the past and in the future before you choose to get offended. And you can maybe choose to disagree and not get offended, right? And not report. Because I think that's what every listener, audience relationship to author and content really is, right? And obviously speak to the truth to power. If I were to become a crazy person spewing hate, becoming a hypocrite, and breaking all the things that I hold myself to, never mind the rules of the game, that by all means get it together and get me shut down. But I hope, knock on wood, that never happens, because I'm here, as I say in my disclaimers, for the purposes of the altruistic, spiritual goal of not being responsible for, but helping to facilitate in any small way the uplifting and enlightenment of the entire human species, because I feel the genuine, authentic calling to such an activity by the very thing we call Mother Earth. Right. So I've got to take a break to not run my voice dead into the ground, but I'm going to continue reading the EULA for Sprecher.com. We're on to the big, chunky main event here. Part 3 next. It's going to be the terms of service and the revenue sharing agreement. And then we're going to kick off a whole new era. And we're going to go back and pull a bunch of episodes down that might contain questionable content and replace them with a bit of music that's original content, that's my own music that I believe I correctly have the right to share through the platform, and rectify the one or two places where I think I might have erred on the side of being a little bit too radical and a little bit too not giving a fuck. And so far, no one's reported to me, thank God. But in all earnest, in all seriousness, wanting to genuinely and authentically be in true and real compliance with the EULA, so as to never have a too much of a controversy problem in the foreseeable future, I'm gonna go ahead and do what I just said, which is like scrub a couple episodes down, and hopefully repost them with non-infringy, bendy the rule-y, but could be interpreted as violating the EULA content, which I think we could make an argument isn't, but I'm still running around in circles, right? Bleh. Yeah, I'm going to do that right now. So, as I transition to doing that, boom, finishing this thing, just cropped the available on list because I like the cool graphic better than I could on my phone. Tried to do it on my phone, and just did a nice big screen grab here on the desktop. So, yeah, exciting stuff. As always, thanks for tuning in. Here's a little bit of music produced by one of my fictional alternate ego personality constructs, DJ Zed, and the backup band Purple Haze and the Political Craze. And it's called, which one do I want to play now? It's called Trap One. Thank you for listening. I've been your weird-ass, eccentric, slightly erratic host, the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo. Stay tuned for more. Part 3 is coming up next.